Good morning, everybody. We're going to start the program now. We're going right to the event. It's posted on Good Jobs Nation, and we're getting ready for the speakers right now. Thank you for joining us today.
My name's Joseph Kivargis. I'm the director of Good Jobs Nation. We are here today broadcasting live from Youngstown, Ohio. We're on the 6th stop of our Midwest pickup tour. This morning, the Communication Workers of America, the United Auto Workers, All Revolutions, and members of the Ohio House and Senate are joining us today to demand that President Trump pick up his pen for America's working people. Once upon a time, this used to be a call center where over 450 people clocked in to work every single day. But now the cubicles are empty, the workers are gone. Across Ohio and the Midwest, there are way too many shuttered factories and boarded up storefronts that are littering the landscape. Candidate Donald J. Trump promised that he would bring jobs back. He promised he would open up the doors of shuttered factories and call centers. On the campaign trail, Donald Trump promised to be a champion for workers. At the New York Economic Club shortly before the election, Donald Trump declared, "Every decision that I make will lead to more jobs and better wages." He promised to use the power of the presidency to stop offshoring. But brothers and sisters, we are now 7 months into the Trump administration. Have you seen more jobs and better wages?
No.
Have you seen an end to offshoring?
No.
No. Nationwide, over 140,000 Americans have gotten pink slips due to offshoring since Donald Trump got to the White House. Right here in Ohio, there's been over 62 mass layoffs that have been announced since Donald Trump took the oath of office. That means almost 10,000 Ohioans are in the unemployment line. The truth is that Donald Trump has the power to fix this right now with a simple stroke of the pen. As CEO of the United States government, Donald Trump has the power to say the U.S. government will not give lucrative federal contracts to companies that betray the American worker by shipping our jobs overseas. But so far, Donald Trump's failed to act. Even though he signed almost 100 executive orders since the election, not a single one raises wages, not a single one stops offshoring. Even though both Democrats and Republicans agree that we have to stop offshoring, President Trump has turned a deaf ear. He has failed to pick up his pen. That's why we, the people, as workers, as taxpayers and citizens, must stand up to put workers first. We are here today to send Donald Trump a clear message. Offshore!
No more!
Offshore!
No more!
Offshore!
No more!
To those of you here in Youngstown and those of you watching online, we need you to join us in holding Donald Trump accountable to his promises. Take out your phones and text Good Jobs USA to 97779 to join our fight. As many of you know, when factories started to leave, politicians started to hand out our taxpayer dollars to call center companies to get them to set up shop to replace the gone jobs. These call centers are the lifeline, the economic foundation of many communities here in Ohio today. But now those call center companies are doing the very same thing that manufacturing companies did. They are taking our money and running away to foreign corporations. But the good news is that we can stop this. But we need you, and America's workers need you. Brothers and sisters, I ask you to join our struggle, join our movement. Again, text Good Jobs USA to 97779 to join our movement. I now want to introduce hard-working Ohioans who are standing up for workers, not just in Ohio, but around the country. First, I want to bring up Sister Renee Rouser. Is that right? Hell, raise hell?
Yeah.
Woo! Renee is a call center worker, and she is a leader with the Communication Workers of America. Earlier this year, she led workers on strike to call on companies like Verizon and AT&T to stop offshoring jobs. She walked the picket line in the rain to send corporate America and our politicians a loud and clear message. We will not tolerate the displacement of the American worker. Give it up for Sister Renee. Woo!
Thanks, Joseph. It's great to be here today. I am proud to be a part of the fight here at home to stand up for these working class families and to keep our jobs here. My union has been fighting hard with legislation both here in Ohio and at federal level that will protect good call center jobs and consumers too. We commend the state legislators for joining us today who have joined the effort. We need every elected official to stand up with us to keep good jobs here in the U.S. and to follow through. Working people are watching. Working people deserve fair return on the work that they do. We want to keep good jobs here in our communities. It's time for the politicians, starting with the president, to carry out their promise. When wealthy corporations start sending jobs overseas and abandoning our communities. We have a great group of state legislators here today. They've been working to build a government to stand on the side of the working people. State Senate Minority Leader Kenny Yuko, Senator Joe Schiavoni, together with Representatives Michele Lepore Hagan and John Boccieri, to introduce legislation on both branches of the Ohio State Legislature that would keep taxpayer funds from going to corporations that send the call center jobs overseas. The Consumer Call Center Protection Act aims that Ohioans keep the customer service industry, which currently provides over 171,000 Ohioans with good union jobs. This important legislation is supported by a bill that has been introduced with bipartisan support at the federal level, a bill that Donald Trump has refused to support. To tell us more is State Senator Joe Schiavoni, who is also running to be Ohio's next governor.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I like this. I fought in the Golden Gloves in Youngstown a while ago, so this is cool. So, thank you very much. You know, I appreciate the opportunity to stand with CWA and with the auto workers today. You know, when I was approached a couple years back from leadership with the CWA and said, look, there are companies that are coming into Ohio that are taking incentives and then leaving and going overseas. We need to do something about this. It was a simple message with a simple solution. So at that point, Senator Yuko, Representative Boccieri, Representative Lepore Hagan, we got together, we put together a piece of legislation that was simple. It said, look, if you're going to take incentives to move call centers into Ohio, you can't leave with those incentives. If you're going to take those incentives, that's okay, but if you leave, you got to pay it back. And not only do you have to pay it back, but you have to give these hardworking people a proper amount of time of notice if you're going to leave so that they can plan for their life for their future generations. You know, these kind of pieces of legislation should not be political at all. This should be supported 33-0 in the Senate and 99-0 in the House. And as we go back down to Columbus next week, we're going to be working every single day in every single legislative office in order to get this passed so that my kids, my 3- and 4-year-old, and these guys will have good opportunities to stay in communities like the Mahoning Valley, to stay in Youngstown and grow their own families. I just appreciate the opportunity to stand with you. I actually have to go to Cleveland to go to a labor festival there and talk about the same thing. So I'm going to have to hit the road, but I appreciate this so much. Thank you so much. Good luck. We'll be with you every step of the way. Thank you so much. And I now have to introduce Kenny Yuko, who took over from me as minority leader in the Senate. Nobody fights harder for working class people than this guy. Kenny, come on up. Yeah. Thank you. Welcome to Youngstown, buddy.
Thank you. Hey, good morning, everybody. Good morning. You know what? I said it a couple of weeks ago when we were in. Well, thank you very much. When I was in Columbus, we had a press conference, and we hold a lot of press conferences in Columbus. And you know what? We stand at a podium and we look out at the media. And we're very happy to do so. But what made me really happy was one day when I was standing at that podium and I had all kinds of sisters and brothers from the CWA standing behind me. And that's what it's all about. Now, I often do this and I'll do it again. This is my union book. This is the union book that I've carried in my pocket proudly. This is the union book that goes in my pocket before my senator pin goes on. This is what provides for my family, what's going to provide for their future, what's going to provide for so many other people. I was a union organizer for 25 years. The very things that we fought for are being stripped away by this administration. Once again, we have to fight like we did with Senate Bill 5, and we will, to fight for what we need to have for our working and our working families. Now, I can't stress to you the importance of contacting your legislators. You know the ones that are here today are the ones that have fought for you continually. The ones you need to contact are the ones that aren't here today, and make sure that they know that their vote is most imperative and that we're going to keep a track of their votes. And if you're not going to support working families, you don't have a place in the Ohio Senate, you don't have a place in the Ohio House. In fact, you can move your butts out of Ohio as far as I'm concerned. Now, I'll tell you what, I got to work with the Honorable Senator Bobby Hagan when I was in the House. Now I get the honor and pleasure of looking at a much better looking Hagan. That's my good friend, State Representative Michele Lepore Hagan.
Thank you, Senator Yuko. Okay, thank you. And thank you for being here today. And thank you, you guys. This is a great way to start your weekend, your holiday weekend. I am so proud to be standing here today representing the heart and the soul of our nation for the working people of the Mahoning Valley. For generations, the people of this valley worked in steel mills, and we know what it means to work with dignity and to work with pride. Because we have a proud history, we are hit especially hard when we see jobs being sent overseas. We saw it first with steel mills and manufacturing jobs leaving. Now it's happening all over again with the call center jobs. And this just doesn't hit our pocketbooks. This hits our souls here, which is why I've really made it my priority to take action and to keep good union jobs here at home. House Bill 245 is a companion bill to Senate Bill 156, and it will protect Ohio's call center jobs by creating incentives for companies to keep jobs here in Ohio. For far too long, hard-working Ohioans have watched middle-class jobs flee our state. With House Bill 245, we can ensure that companies won't be eligible for state grants and loans from the Ohio state government. It's really simple. Right now, there are 170,000 call center workers throughout the state of Ohio, and that number has fallen by 7.5% in the last decade, as jobs that support families and help hardworking Ohioans get ahead have been sent overseas. With living wages and flexible hours, these jobs are critical to the economic stability of working families in northeastern Ohio. And at the very least, we must ensure that our state government, that our taxpayer dollars support call center jobs within our borders and refuse to reward the companies that send those jobs overseas. Call center jobs support families, and the Consumer Call Center Protection Act protects these jobs. Too much is at stake, and we must act now. you can help us. You can email the chairman of the Commerce and Labor Committee in the Ohio House at rep61@ohiohouse.gov and tell him to vote House Bill 245 out of committee because we need to do it for Ohio jobs. That's rep61@ohiohouse.gov. Really, we need to protect Ohio jobs. And together, we can make our government work for working families. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being here today, everyone. It's wonderful to have the support of working families. I have the pleasure to introduce my colleague and joint sponsor on the bill, John Boccieri. Representative John Boccieri is an amazing person, and he's here right now to address you. Thank you.
Offshore!
No more!
Offshore!
No more!
Offshore! Offshore!
No more! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Mahoning Valley. Good Jobs Nation. Welcome to the hardest working place in Ohio, right here in Youngstown. My friends, we're invited here on this Labor Day weekend to ask representatives, elected officials from all over the United States to stand up and make it their job to fight for your job. Today is about workers, the future of our country. These young children here, it's about their future. It's about working families making sure they have enough income to put bread on the table, to make the investments in their family that are going to move their families forward. And while we saw the smoky signals of progress here in Youngstown at one time, we're recovering. And we're moving forward, and we're not giving up because we're fighters here. You just have to look to Lordstown. You just have to look to the UAW. You have to look at the communication workers of America to understand what it means to fight for good-paying jobs in our community. Until too often, we've seen so many of these jobs offshored because we haven't seen representatives in Washington, D.C. stand up and fight. But we have good fighters, people who have stood up and said, enough is enough. Today, we're here to fight these call center jobs with comprehensive legislation that makes sense. We don't want to use your taxpayer dollars to subsidize the bottom lines of companies who are not loyal to workers, not loyal to the state, and not loyal to the United States of America that have made them wealthy beyond compare around the world. You know, the average call center worker in the Philippines makes $5,000 a year. That's less than $1 a day. $5,000 a year, where the annual wage for a call center worker here is more than $30,000 with good paying benefits. Workers are being exploited around the world, around the globe. It doesn't take too long or often to fly down to Mexico or to fly down to Central America to see what they're doing with car manufacturing, to see what they're doing with call centers, to understand that workers are being exploited. $1 a day can't put bread on the table for anyone. Not here, not in the Philippines, not in India, not anywhere. And that's why we have to stand up. This legislation puts a marker in the state of Ohio that we are not going to allow our jobs and our taxpayer dollars to continue with these bad policies any longer. We're going to stand up and fight for what is right. And that's why we need politicians from all walks of life to stand up and make it their job to fight for your job. Ohio's working people deserve this. America's working people deserve this. And it's time that we really do put American workers first in this country. Let's stand up. Let's stand up and pass this bill in Ohio. Let's stand up and fight for elected officials who's going to make it their job to fight for your job. And let's tell our leaders in this country that we will offshore.
No more!
Offshore.
No more!
Offshore.
No more!
Woo! Right now. We're going to hear from George Sipkis, a call center worker from Local 4320. George?
Thanks, John. Thank you, Representative Boccieri. What are we fighting for?
Jobs.
No more. These legislators have worked hard to create a policy that protects the interests of Ohio working people. It's up to the rest of us to get over the finish line. Let's make Ohio an example of what protecting American jobs looks like. Here to tell us more about what is at stake is another dedicated CWA member who is also located out of the call center with us. George?
Thank you, Renee. So I'm concerned about where our industry is headed. When our jobs are sent overseas, everyone loses. As a call center worker, customer support is at the heart of everything I do on a daily basis. Yet every year, year after year, as more and more good jobs are sent overseas, providing the good customer support, it just becomes harder and harder. Serious language barriers, inadequate training of foreign workers, these create a daily unnecessary roadblocks for all of us here. And all of that trickles down to the customers. But what scares me the most is that the ever-present threat to families that depend on those jobs. We've all got families to support. Those of us fortunate enough to still clock in every day, we always wonder if we're next. We wake up every day wondering, when's our last day? Knowing your job could be swept out from under your feet for pennies on the dollar is a fact that you're never going to forget. So when companies send these good jobs overseas, you know where their priorities lie. The customer doesn't come first. The workers certainly don't come first. Corporations pay overseas workers, as we've heard, less than $2 an hour, sometimes for a 12-hour shift. Workers in the U.S. should not be forced to compete with that. But that's exactly what happens. Companies threaten our jobs if we don't agree to lower wages or cuts to our benefits. That's wrong. Today, it's hard to find a good job that pays enough to support your family. Those jobs, they're few and far between. But those same corporations that are sending good call center jobs overseas want U.S. customers to buy mobile phones and pay for all of their services. It can't work that way. Something needs to change. We need leaders to step up. We can't do it on our own. We're trying, but we need help. We need politicians on our side. We need corporations that care about the future of our nation, that are invested in our economy.
That's right.
We need good American jobs.
That's right.
Thank you.
So give it up for George. Give it up for Renee. And give it up for the elected officials that are here, putting it all on the line to stand up for America's workers. Offshore! 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 So this is Labor Day weekend, and all across the country, working men and women are coming together to talk about the nature of work. The sad part is the nature of work in our country has been destroyed over the last 3 decades. We used to have good union manufacturing jobs in the United States. We used to have the strongest middle class in the history of the world. But corporate trade policies, Republican policies that undermined worker rights have created a situation where too many workers today live in poverty. They go and work at fast food joints. Part of the reason we're here today is because we want to rebuild the American dream and bring back good jobs to the United States. This Labor Day weekend, we are fighting for the American worker. We invite you to join us. Text 97779 to get involved. Right now, it is my proud honor to introduce Brother Glenn Johnson. He is the president of UAW Local 1112. That local has a proud history. It's been on the front lines of worker struggles in the United States. The local used to represent almost 15,000 GM workers in Lordstown. Today, because of unfair trade policies, because of corporate greed, and because politicians who don't have our back, the membership is down to 3,000. Here to talk about the fight back is Brother Johnson. Give it up.
All right, first off, on behalf of all the UAW workers, we proudly stand with the TWA in your fight. You know, offshore, no more.
You know, on behalf of, to kind of parallel with what's going on here, there are so many trade agreements, bad trade agreements that have went on that have ruined the auto industries and industry and manufacturing across our country. We're here locally fighting for Senate bills and House bills, but NAFTA was one of the first things that came down the road that hurt the auto industry. When NAFTA became part of the American culture, it took jobs in a huge sucking sound to Mexico. And it went so fast that we could not comprehend it. As we said, we had 15,000 workers in Lordstown. Now we have 3,000. So that fight is just becoming. Now, how do we make it level? I get asked often, it says, do we need trade? Absolutely we need trade. We need our trading partners and we need them to work hand in hand with us. Then the next question is, well, what do we do about it? First off, we got to make trade fair.
That's right.
Not free, fair, okay? We have to get out there and we have to have environmental standards that protect the people in those countries, the air they breathe, the water they drink, has to be of the same quality that we get here. Second of all, we have to provide OSHA standards that are equal to those in this country. So workers go home to their families the way they came to work every day, with their fingers intact and their toes intact and not missing limbs, and most of all, not dying on their jobs.
That's right.
That's what has to happen. And last, and certainly not least, is civil and human rights for those workers in those countries, and including child exploitation of child labor laws. Those things have to happen to make the playing field level so that we can compete. As you've heard here today, we have the most productive workers in the entire world. Given the opportunity to stand hand in hand with anybody in the world, we can compete. But we got to make the playing field level. That's what we call on President Trump. He talked about revisiting NAFTA. Open that agreement. Make it fair. Okay? Make it fair for all workers. Then again, you know, we have to go ahead and we have to look ahead to what's down the road. That is the tip of the iceberg. Because I was just in Mexico last year and the Mexican workers are afraid for their jobs. Simply because the race to the bottom continues. Okay? As soon as the playing field gets level for those in Mexico, companies, corporations, lobbyists, politicians will find a way to exploit our workers in another country. So the world, it will continue to spiral downward until we put a stop to it. The only way we can do that is hold our political officials accountable and make them revisit the agreements and make them level for everybody in this country. Thank you very much. Have a great and safe Labor Day. God bless you and enjoy our day.
Thank you, brother. Offshore! 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 It's now my pleasure to introduce someone who's stirring stuff up from coast to coast. Sister Nina Turner is originally from Ohio. She represented Cleveland in the state Senate for many years. And now she is fighting for America's workers, leading the political revolution across the country as the new president of our revolution. Give it up for Nina Turner.
Thank you, Joseph, so very much. I want CWA to see what I brought here this morning. You guys may remember this, 50 million strong, building a movement that contains 50 million strong of conscious folks all across this country to retake our economic power in this country. I want to commend all of my colleagues who have spoken before me. George, you got down really laying it out there. And President Johnson really laid out how what, in the words of Dr. Martin Luther King, when he said, what affects one directly affects all of us indirectly.
That's right.
And the fact that we have sisters and brothers all across this world, not just in the United States of America, who are being exploited. And that should concern all of us because it impacts us. You know, Representative Boccieri laid out the fact that these babies who surround us, this fight that we have today is not just for ourselves, but it is for this generation and generations yet unborn, that we stand up. I want to thank Good Jobs Nation for bringing us all together. I hate that the family had to come together for this kind of occasion, but it is good for the family to come together. I want to thank also my colleagues in the Senate and in the House for the bills that they have introduced, and I implore every single elected official in the legislature of Ohio to support those bills. This is not about Republican or Democrat. This is not about a D or an R. This is about an RT, and that's the right thing. Yeah. And everybody can join the party of the right thing. That's what we're looking for. To the President of the United States, you know, as Mr. Trump, he made promises, but he has not kept them. All talk and no action when it comes to the livelihood of working class women and men in this country. On the campaign trail, Mr. Trump said he would bring back jobs from China, Mexico, Japan, and everywhere. Promises made, but not one kept. He said, I will be the greatest jobs president that God ever created. Promises made, but not one kept.
That's right.
He said that he would replace free trade with fair trade. We really need Mr. Trump to get in touch with President Trump. That's right. And let's make some of these promises real. On the campaign trail, he said that he would impose new taxes on many imports into this country. Promises made, but not yet kept. Mr. Trump made these promises on the campaign trail. And again, I'm hoping that President Trump will keep the promises that he made when it comes to lifting the working class women and men in this country. It is absolutely the right thing to do. And to my sisters and brothers who voted in this last election, I am not here to criticize or critique your decision to vote for whomever you decided would be the best for that job. But let me tell you this, 2018 is on the way. 2020 will be here before we know it, and it is time for our sisters and brothers in this country to start to hold elected officials accountable for the promises that they make on the campaign trail. That's right. Now, we are, in the words of Fannie Lou Hamer, sick and tired of being sick and tired. Politicians make lots of promises on the campaign trail. Mr. Trump is not the only one. So I am calling out my sisters and brothers in the elected ministry who do not have the courage to sacrifice their next election for the next generation to stand up and do what is right, even if it brings them some discomfort. The working class women and men, working class families of this nation have done more than their fair share to lift the profits of corporations. And it's not so much that anybody in this country, and I have traveled all over this country, and I've never heard one working class person begrudge corporations or begrudge wealthy people. But what they are sick and tired of is exploitation and massive amount of greed, that type of greed that causes everyday people not to be able to live a good life. I've never once met anybody who said that when they grow up, they want to be poor. Everybody in this country and everybody in this world has a dream to live a good life, and if they have children, to ensure that the lives of their children are better than their own. But unfortunately, right now in the United States of America and all across the world, we see that oppression is happening in the economic and social spheres of this world, and working class women and men are being kept down, not because they're not working hard. When you hear the term working poor, that should trigger something for you. People are not sitting at home eating bonbons with their feet up on a table. They're working 40, 50, 60 hours a week trying to string together 2 and 3 jobs, and yet they still find themselves in poverty. What that says to me is that the political elites need to get a clue and use the force of their public policy positions to do what is right on behalf of the families in this country. That's right. Yeah. No one is asking for more than what they deserve, or in the words of Congresswoman Barbara Jordan, what the people want is simple. They want an America as good as its promise. And what is wrong with members of labor unions who lifted the wages of everybody in this country, whether they are in a labor union or not. What is wrong with folks wanting to live a good life and to have good jobs?
That's right.
We don't get up for decent. Decent doesn't get us up in the morning, but good and great does.
That's right.
And so we are calling upon our sisters and brothers all over this country and all over this world to stand in solidarity, not just with CWA, but to stand in solidarity with all of our working class families all across this nation and this world who are being abused. And corporate leaders need to be ashamed of themselves.
That's right.
And how they sleep at night, I do not understand. Exploitation is wrong. Is wrong. But sisters and brothers, I want you to know that there is promise in this problem. That every single elected official from the local level to the federal level will have a day of reckoning. It is called Election Day. And we have the power to change the realities in this country and also in this world. So I don't want you to be discouraged. I'm feeling a little Mother Jones right now. I'm feeling a little President Nelson Mandela right now. But when Mother Jones said that she would fight like hell, she would pray for the dead and fight like hell for the living. And to hear my colleagues talk about oppression in this country historically and what happened to children, Mother Jones was one of those champions that stood up against child labor and to create and push for child labor laws that were fair. And we find ourselves in the 21st century pushing for the same type of fairness right now in our time. Or when President Nelson Mandela once said that it always seems impossible until it is done.
That's right.
I want to remind all of us that what we are fighting for here today, this Labor Day weekend in 2017, it may seem impossible until it is done. And with all of our efforts pushing towards making a fair and equitable work environment in this country and on every single level of government, we can do this together. If we put a little extra on our ordinary, extraordinary things will happen. So I am putting every single elected official on notice that the working class men and women of this country will not sit idly by and let you continue to whisper sweet nothings in our ears. We will run for office, and we will demand that in this country, workers are treated with the respect and the dignity that they deserve, not just in their workplaces, but through their salaries, through their paychecks, because they have built the wealth of this nation.
That's right.
And nothing is wrong with sharing that wealth and being a socially conscious corporation and being a socially conscious elected official. It always seems impossible until it is done. But we are going to do the daggone thing. Are you with me, sisters and brothers? Are you with me, sisters and brothers? Good jobs, nation. We will not stop until it is done. And our revolution is right there with you all the way. God bless you.
Give it up for Nina Turner. Give it up for Sister Nina Turner. And give it up for our revolution. Our revolution is one of the sponsors of the Midwest Pickup Tour, along with CWA, along with the Teamsters, along with the UAW, and the other unions of Change to Win. Together, we are leading a movement to hold politicians accountable to the working class. For far too long, we've allowed politicians to take our money and to run. We have allowed them to screw America's workers, to get in bed with corporate interests. Today, we are saying enough is enough. And we are proud to stand with our allies to put politicians on notice. If you don't stand with us, we're coming for you.
Come on, say that.
All right, sisters. So, brothers and sisters, for those of you who are watching online, I urge you to join us in this moment. Join Good Jobs Nation. Get involved in our movement. The working class in this country needs your support. If we're going to hold politicians accountable, we need everyone to get involved. So please text Good Jobs Nation USA 97779, Good Jobs Nation USA, and get involved in our movement. What's going to be happening in the next couple of days is exciting. The Midwest Pickup Tour is going to stop in Lorraine for the Labor Day picnic there. Be sure to stop by. But after that, we're going to go to Erie, Pennsylvania. Erie was one of those places that Donald Trump won by a slim margin. It helped put Donald Trump in the White House. Right before the election, Donald Trump went to Erie. He packed the Allstate Arena with 10,000 folks, and he said he was going to fight for the American worker. Well, you know what? In that run-up to that election, 1,500 GE workers were thrown on the street. And GE just announced that another 600 workers are going to be on the unemployment line. The Midwest Pickup Tour is going to go to Erie. We're going to stand with the UE, and we're going to demand that Donald Trump use his power as CEO of the United States government to tell GE that it cannot move.
Come on, say that.
It cannot move. GE receives billions of dollars in federal contracts, billions of dollars in our hard-earned money, bankroll its bottom line. Yet it is the #1 offshore among federal contractors. Brothers and sisters, we need your help to stop GE from gutting Erie, and we need your help to hold Donald Trump accountable to his promises, but not just Donald Trump, all politicians, wherever they are. Offshore! No more! Offshore! No more! Offshore! No more! Thank you, brothers and sisters. Happy Labor Day.
Can we get a few more chants before the crowd disperses?
Well, that was exciting. That's Nina Turner, and she was incredible. What a badass. We got to get ready for a wake. What is it, 8:48? Thank you all for being here. I'm going to run out with the fire is ours. I got Marcus and Laura with me here, hanging out. Hey, guys, your audio's on.
Yay. Good morning, everyone. Oh, and a little Makana to start the day. How nice.
Why not?
Makana and Nina.
The fire is ours, and if you're in Laura's area, you're on fire. It's definitely
It's gonna
hers
be
today.
freaking hot here today. It hasn't hit yet, but oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Here, let's see if I can get everybody in a shot. Where's the German? There he is.
Here's the German.
There's a
Yeah,
German.
can it be any better to open the Saturday morning, to open the weekend with Nina Turner?
Nah,
Nope.
doesn't.
I
get
don't think
better.
so.
It starts things off right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you all for being here. Share that. I guess we're going to go on a pickup tour with Nina. So we'll find out where the next event is. Hopefully Good Jobs will continue the live streaming. That was a great, solid stream from them. And do what they said. Support them, everybody, because, I was looking at their stream. They peaked out at like 80 people. We peaked out at like 50. Right? We need more people to see this, and that's you guys. We don't have MSM advertising and synergy across networks to share each other's content. We have you guys. So please share this when you can. Put it into your Facebook groups, to your friends. Email it to crotchety old parents who don't believe in any of this stuff. I do that with my dad all the time. There. Take a look at this link, Dad. It's social. Anyway. I love you, Dad, and I know you like Facebook now. I'm just kidding.
He's doing great on Facebook.
He is. He really is.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for being here. We gotta scramble and get ready for the show at 10:30, and I believe we'll have Katie Tillman from Revolution Funding in to talk about that stuff, and news, where the floods are, where the fires are.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. Here we're going out with Makana. Fire is ours, because it is, and it really does seem impossible until it's done, right? Remember, Andrew Feinstein said 6 years. 6 years. They flipped South Africa around. So we can do this. See you guys in a bit. As soon as I find my cursor.
I've been lied to, misled, built about what they said, lifted only to be let down. I've been taken for a ride, given power to decide, only to find out I was wrong. But I learned to tell the walls are faking, from the few really fit to run. Just follow the money they've been taking, and the truth will shine like the sun. I'm so tired of lies now, babe. Don't wanna compromise, no way. And I feel the burn for someone who can't be bought, to back the man who's fought for the people of America. Call agenda, who's the biggest spender, party personality. Soundbite, get it right, entertain him, it's a fight. Pick the one who most looks like me. Don't speak of any real solutions. It's the shock appeal they're looking for. Don't criticize the institution, but I can't take it anymore. Aren't you tired of lies now, baby? It's time for us to rise, no more maybe. And I feel the burn for the truth to come across, to melt away the gloss and reveal the motivations. And you'll feel the burn for integrity to lead, focus on the needs of the people of America. Somebody's talking at your heartstrings, saying what you want to hear, but they're just a pawn to the real king, playing upon your fear. The love of power is a puppet string, but can't control the love we bring. The fire is out, the hour is now, the tide is set to turn.